Okay guys, here are the answers to the Chapter 2 review. I'll explain them as best I can, and then just make sure you can do all this for your test on Wednesday. Okay, now if you notice, number 1 is just a pattern. If you notice, each time it's being rotated 90 degrees clockwise. So if we continue the pattern, it goes from here. If we turn it 90 degrees clockwise, which is in this direction, then it would look something like this. So the answer to number 1 is right there. Now, number 2 is just a pattern. If you notice, we have 2, then 2 plus 4, 2 plus 4 plus 6, 2 plus 4 plus 6 plus 8, and then here's what they equal, 2, 6, 12, 20. But the final part is where the pattern is. Notice here we have 1 times 2, 2 times 3, 3 times 4, 4 times 5, and what they all have in common is it's the number of terms they have times the next number. So notice here there's one term, so it's 1 times 2. Here there's 4 terms, so it's 4 times 5. So if we want the sum of the first 12, then it would simply be 12 times 13, which is 156. So on those patterns, always look for the common theme in each one. Okay, moving on to number 3. If you notice, the sum of an even number and an odd number is blank. Now again, when you're doing these, please do examples. So there's an even number plus an odd number, and we get an odd answer. Now let's try another one. 2 plus 5, again, is 7. And now let's add a negative just to see what that does. So let's do negative 4 plus 9. And when we do those, we will get 5. So you can see as we're doing that, anytime we add an even and an odd, the answer is always going to be an odd number. Okay, moving on to number 4. Here we have we just want to know, is it valid? So is this a correct use? It says if you are eating an apple, then you are eating fruit. If you are eating fruit, then you will stay healthy. Hopefully real quick you pick up the law of syllogism. You can see that we have then you are eating fruit and if you are eating fruit. So we have the same thing on each way. And so if that happens, then we know whatever's left is an accurate statement. So as long as my conjecture says if you're eating an apple, then you will stay healthy, then it's valid. And as we look at our conjecture, it says if you eat an apple, then you will stay healthy. So that is a valid use based on the law of syllogism. All right, moving on. Okay, number 5. This is a biconditional statement. Notice the if and only if. Remember, if and only if has to work forwards and backwards. So in order for this to be true, a figure is a square if it is a rectangle. Well, is a square a rectangle? Yes, it is. But then it also has to work backwards. Is a rectangle a square? That is not true. A rectangle does not have to be a square. It could stay a rectangle. So that is a false statement. And then for a counterexample, you just need to make sure you understand that a rectangle is not the same exact thing as a square. Okay, moving now into the algebraic proofs. This is going to be a big part of the test, so make sure that you know how to do these. Now, if you notice, it says given 4x minus 5 equals 11, prove x equals 4. Well, if you notice, my first statement is 4x minus 5 equals 11, and the reason for that is obviously because they gave it to me, so it's given. Now, in order to solve, we had to add 5 to both sides, and when we add 5 to both sides, that gives us 4x equals 16. So then the second step, the reason is because we added, so it's the addition property of equality. And then the final step, to solve for x, we have to divide both sides by 4. And when we divide by 4, that gives us x equals 4. And so then that would be the division property of equality that got us the answer. Moving on to question 6. Again, we have a proof. This time you have to complete the entire thing. Now, again, the first statement is always going to be the given. So x plus 20 equals 6x plus 5. And that is given. Now at this point you can do several different things. I'm going to get my x's together, so I'm going to subtract x from each side, and that will give me 20 equals 5x plus 5, and I got that by subtracting, so that's going to be the subtraction property of equality. And then my third step, I'm going to subtract 5 to get all my numbers away from the x's, so that's going to give me 15 equals 5x, and again we subtracted both sides by 5, so again that is the subtraction property of equality. And then finally, step 4, we're going to divide both sides by 5, and that's going to give me 3 equals x, and we got that by division, and so that is the division property of equality. And then the last part is something that I really want you to try to get used to. Whenever we solve, we like to say x equals 3, not 3 equals x. So what I want to do is I want to rewrite it to x equals 3. And if you will remember, the property that allows me to switch them around like that is called the symmetric property. And so that would be the symmetric property of equality to get me my final answer. Okay, moving on to number 7. Okay, number 7, again, step 1 is the given equation, 4x minus 8 equals 2x plus 4, and that's given. Then again, step 2, I'm going to get my x's together by subtracting 2x, so I get 2x minus 8 equals 4, and again, that was done by subtracting, so that's the subtraction property of equality. And then I think you can see step 8, we're going to add 8 to both sides. That was actually step 3. So when we add 8 to both sides, we're going to get 2x equals 12. And we got that by adding, so that's the addition property of equality. And then step 4, we're going to divide both sides by 2 to get x equals 6. And that was accomplished by the division property of equality. And as you can see here, we have x equals, so there's no reason to use any other properties. We are complete. We are finished. Okay, moving on to number 8. Now, these are the logic puzzles. If you notice, I will go to Six Flags if and only if I ride the Texas Giant. And we tell you that is a true statement. So remember, it has to work forwards and backwards. So if you go to Six Flags, you will ride the Texas Giant, and if you ride the Texas Giant, you will go to Six Flags. So is number 1 true? If I ride the Texas Giant, then I went to Six Flags. Yes, that is true. Now, if I do not go to Six Flags, then I will not ride the Giant. Well, obviously, if you're not there, you can't ride it. And then finally, if I go to Six Flags, then I will ride the Giant. Well, it works forwards and backwards, so that is true as well. So then the answer here is C. All 3 are valid. Okay, moving on to number 9. This is a conditional. If a figure has 4 sides, then it is a square. So if a figure has 4 sides, is it a square? Not always. That's false. It could be a rhombus, it could be a rectangle, it could be a quadrilateral. So just any 4-sided figure that's not a square would be a good counterexample. Okay, number 10. If you notice, there's a myth that if a tree falls in the woods, it can't be heard. But a group of scientists set up microphones in the woods to record the sound in the woods for 1 week. After analyzing the data from their recordings, they found that falling trees can be heard, therefore the myth is false. Now, is that inductive, where it's just common sense and patterns, or is it deductive, where they use scientific data? It is deductive because they actually use microphones to record the data and were able to analyze the data, so that is a deductive reasoning. Okay, number 11. Here's another interesting little logic puzzle. Now, if you notice, it says that these people all own different animals. No girl has the type of pet that begins with the same letter of her name. So obviously Bonnie cannot own a bird, Callie cannot own a cat, Daphne cannot own a dog, and Fiona cannot own a fish. So basically we're going to put an X, and if you notice the hint, put a check mark in the correct box and an X in the incorrect box. Now, it says that Bonnie is allergic to animal fur. So then Bonnie can't own a cat or a dog, so Bonnie must own the fish. Now it says Daphne feeds Fiona's bird when she is away, so Fiona owns a bird, so then that rules out those. Now obviously if Fiona has a bird, then Daphne and Callie can't have them, and if Bonnie owns a fish, then Callie and Daphne again can't have them. So that leaves one blank left. Daphne must own the dog, and Callie must own the dog, and Daphne must own the cat. And so that would be your correct matchings. Fiona has the bird, Daphne has the cat, Callie has the dog, Bonnie has the fish. And then finally is just a bunch of vocabulary. Make sure you know the converse is where we switch the if and then. The inverse is where you change it from if then to if not, then not. Contrapositive is where we switch the if and then and negate them. So it's from if then to if not, then not after we switch it. Inductive reasoning is common sense and patterns. Deductive reasoning is scientific proof and evidence. And then your two-column proofs, that's the things we did with your algebra. And then you have all your properties. So make sure to know all those. Those will be easy, free points on the test as long as you know what you're doing. Anyway, that wraps up the Chapter 2 review. If you have any questions, feel free to come to tutoring. I will be available, but good luck to you, and come see me if you need it.